Leave your comments on the Ask Reddit sub, and I'll read your answers on the next episode of LWIAR. Which fictional character's death have you not gotten over? Boromir. When I first watched LWIAR, I couldn't have cared less when Boromir died. He was arrogant, not as cool as anyone else, and dangerously drawn to the ring. However, as I've gotten older, I find myself connecting with Boromir more with every watch. He clearly cares deeply for the other members of the Fellowship. Unfortunately, he also feels the weight of responsibility for his people, and the pressure from his father. The ring fed into that tortuous quandary, and nearly drove him mad. The scene where he comes to his senses after driving Frodo off is heartbreaking now. So horrified at what he'd done. So vulnerable, so human, and despite believing that he had doomed the world, he threw himself into protecting that which he could still reach. The other hobbits, everything he had, including his life, and his last moments with Aragorn. Oof, the love and pride that bursts from him. Boromir is a great character. He was weak and screwed up in a way many of us well might, but immediately atoned for it in a way many would balk at. At the end he was all that is to human in us, and worth fighting for, to both extremes. The extra scenes in the Two Towers Extended Edition make his death much more tragic. Edit. Link to see. The Boromir flashback is the one scene of the E's I really wish had been kept in both versions. It tells you all you need to know about the relationship between all three characters and gives you a better understanding of why they do the things they do. I love that scene so much for one simple moment. When Faramir points out that Thor is there and Boromir drops his head and asks why they can't have one moment of peace. Before that I had always thought of their relationship as a rivalry. But that little moment, along with Boromir trying to give Faramir his deserved credit, showed that it was really just a brotherhood supporting each other while dealing with an butthole father. Back when I first watched Fellowship I completely misunderstood Boromir and downright hated him. After seeing everything including the extended versions, and growing up a bit myself, I've come to love him and he's now one of my very favorite LWIAR characters. I would have followed you, crying face. My brother. My captain. My king. They will look for his coming from the White Tower, but he will not return. Mike from Breaking Bad, involved in a bad life but the love for his granddaughter, heartbreaking. Shut up and let me die in peace. He had some demons too. That's why I love Better Call Saul. I watched Breaking Bad all in one binge. I'm so glad they made Better Call Saul so I can watch it and now look forward to the finale season. Brooks from The Shawshank Redemption. Brooks was here, loudly crying. I doubt they'll kick up any fuss, not for an old crook like me. The worst thing was how real it was, knowing that this happens to people a lot. Dear fellas, I can't believe how fast things move on the outside. I saw an automobile once when I was a kid, but now they're everywhere. The world went and got itself in a big damn hurry. The parole board got me into this halfway house called The Brewer and a job bagging groceries at the Foodway. It's hard work and I try to keep up, but my hands hurt most of the time. I don't think the store manager likes me very much. Sometimes after work, I go to the park and feed the birds. I keep thinking Jake might just show up and say hello, but he never does. I hope wherever he is, he's doing okay and making new friends. I have trouble sleeping at night. I have bad dreams like I'm falling. I wake up scared. Sometimes it takes me a while to remember where I am. Maybe I should get me a gun and rob the Foodway so they'd send me home. I could shoot the manager while I was at it. Sort of like a bonus. I guess I'm too old for that sort of nonsense anymore. I don't like it here. I'm tired of being afraid all the time. I've decided not to stay. I doubt they'll kick up any fuss. Not for an old crook like me. P.S. Tell Haywood I'm sorry I put a knife to his throat. No hard feelings. Brooks. Brooks was here carrot, so was Red. Leslie Burke from Bridge to Terabithia. This one fricked me up as a kid. I was depressed for days. As a teen, I rented a DVD from the local store. It was very common to find cheap rentals of bootleg movies in India at the time. The label on the DVD clearly said Narnia, but it turned out to be this movie. I felt terrible for days after having watched it. Edit. Just realizing how many of you poor souls were traumatized as a child by a group of Bootleggers who mistook Bridge to Terabithia for the Chronicles of Narnia. Prince Caspian, R.I.P. Ned Stark. Played by an actor known for dying in everything he's in. And still a shocker. I was so shocked when they accurately did it. The moment I realized this isn't going to be like all the other movies, shows edit. To all of the replies. I'm not that familiar with the actor, so I couldn't see it coming. Exactly. At that exact moment I knew I was in for a ride. Valor Morghulis. Guess I'm getting too old. Littlefoot's mom, yo. Probably the saddest kids movie death ever. It was way too much. I felt like I lost my own mom that day. Always wanted to eat a tree star. What was his name? Wash, the pilot in Firefly. What killed me was Zoe's response to Kaylee's question. The crack in her voice when she says, "Wash ain't comin'," just breaks my heart. She's been a widow for all of 2 minutes. But she's a damn soldier and has to hold it together to get her people to safety. Hoburn Washburn came here looking for this. I am a leaf on the wind. Watch how I saw Wash, pilot of the Serenity. 2 seconds later, damn it Wash, what are you doing? I am a leaf on the wind. What does that even mean? This is why that will always be one of my favorite films. Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks. They deserved a good life. Crap, at the very least they deserved an on-screen death if nothing else. Honestly, many of the deaths in Book 7 feel half-assed, rushed, convenient, dismissive, etc. I know people have said and are saying here that, oh, it had to happen to show just how terrible the war is. Just what the stakes are. If people didn't die then you wouldn't feel it was serious, etc. But I would argue that much of Book 7 is paced extremely badly. And as a result, many of the major and minor character deaths come across as convenient. Logistical hand waves. It reads like Rowling had a big list of characters who would appear in the book and went down the list, crossing them off until she reached a predetermined total. At least X characters need to die in the last book. I know. Let's kill Arthur Weasley. No, that wouldn't tug at the heartstrings enough. One of the twins. Yeah, because they're always together, so now readers will be sad they can't be together anymore. No one likes Colin Creevey. But he's just a kid. So it'll feel unfortunate. Tonks and Lupin because Harry needs to lose all his parental figures and I forgot to off them earlier and they just had a kid, so it'll be double sad. It's every obnoxious cheap death cliche ever. They were an inseparable duo. They just had a baby and we're going to live a happy life. She was just a beloved pet. He was a perpetual underdog. He was just a child. He was a grizzled old veteran 2 days from retirement. He said loudly, "I don't want to die," but then he died. How tragically ironic. I love these books, and I am still continually impressed at how clever writing and excellent pacing can make me just totally miss or ignore obvious world-building issues that people love to bring up ad nauseum online. But I think it's abundantly clear that Book 7 needed a lot of set building and establishment that simply hadn't been done by the time we got through Book 6. Much of this is the fault of Book 6 being an uncharacteristic meandering pile of nonsense filler, with a plot-important death we'd been waiting for since Book 1 tacked on at the end. In my opinion, Rowling needed to set up a ton of stuff and then have it all play out. But she hadn't, so it all got jammed into Book 7 alongside some necessary but slow character development and conflict, making the whole thing feel extremely cramped. And that makes the vast majority of the deaths in Book 7 feel totally unearned, dismissive, and or completely lacking in the impact they're supposed to have. I get that that's the reality of war, and so on. But absolutely none of the other books treat death this way. In fact, even Book 7 doesn't treat death this way when Harry dies and goes to the waiting room. When you spend an entire book, Cedric, 3 entire books, Sirius, or 6 entire books, Dumbledore, setting up individual character deaths and talking at length about sacrifice and love and tragedy and circumstance and meaning and loss and on, you can't get to the last book and go, well, people die in war, it's just reality, and expect everything to just work. None of the books are written or paced like war stories. Even the war at the end isn't written or paced like a war story, except that at one point Harry unexpectedly sees the dead bodies of some major characters who died off screen and feels bad for a paragraph. Oh no, how brutal the reality of war is. So yeah, I think pretty much all the deaths in Book 7 failed at doing what they were supposed to do. They didn't make me sad. They made me frustrated. They felt condescending. Remember this character. Don't you feel so sad because they were important once and then they died unexpectedly? Hand-waving a bunch of characters dead doesn't raise the stakes. It's lazy, manipulative, and ineffective writing, and it was a profoundly disappointing choice in an otherwise pretty solid finale. So did Fred, and Dobby, and Hedwig, and Sirius, and Cedric, and James and Lily, and Colin. Die a whole Pettigrew. Oberyn Martell. I remember watching that for the first time when I was like 14 and I seriously thought he was gonna win, and then pop. Oh god, his death was one of the worst in the entire series. I don't think there was any point during the series at which I was so angry. One of the few things I enjoyed in the travesty of a finale was when he tried to kill his brother the same way, and failed. I mean, the Hound still died, but I count it as his win. One of the few subplots that finished nicely in my opinion. Hughes from Full Metal Alchemist. I really liked him. His Japanese VA apparently also died from cancer this year. It's a terrible day for Rain. The funeral gets me every time. Morden Solis. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. I made a mistake first time in the series. He used the word I. His work on the genophage fricked him up so much he had to detach himself from his work completely. My work, my cure, my responsibility, had to be me. Just added this one myself. Him and Thane were heartbreaking to watch. And praying at Thane's bedside was almost as bad. Edit. This is now my most upvoted comment. And is about Mass Effect. Appropriate. The sniper from Saving Private Ryan. He was a guy that was doing his absolute best and gave it his all. When the tower was bombed that he was in, my heart sunk. But that's war. Edit. OMG, thank you all so much. Thank you for sharing all of your stories too. I've been sitting in bed reading them all morning. The first time I watched Saving Private Ryan, it was in my sophomore year in history class and I cried. All of the deaths in that movie were heartbreaking. I thought the medic was worse when they ask him, tell us how to fix you, and then he cries out for his mom. Are any of them bleeding worse than the others? Yeah, this one down here. Oh my god, my liver. The recognition on the actor's face is just heartbreaking. My horse in Red Dead 2. Rest in peace, Ivory. Rip Mayo, you were the greatest horse. Actually felt physical pain when she died. I called her Mayo, because 1, she was the white horse from the ice cap, and 2, well, mayonnaise. Thank you. Anyone who has finished the game knows the impact of this very simple line. Rip Damocles. Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy. They had to kill Yondu, otherwise the Battle of Wakanda would have been over in seconds. I cry every time I watch that bit. Mary Poppins soft sobbing. He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. One of the best lines out of the whole MCU. Fred Weasley from Harry Potter, and Greed from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. You mentioned Greed and not Mice Hughes. Terrible day for Rain. Don't forget Hedwig, she barely even got a paragraph before they forgot her. And Dobby. I was so broken by Dobby's death that I had to put down the book and walk away for a bit. I never understood why Fred had to die. It was a book about war and the indiscriminate destruction it causes. People die for no good reason in war, and that is likely why it needed to happen. Man, frick this thread. Keeps reading. The wife from Up. Yeah damn, that movie didn't waste any time in tearing your heart out. The dogs in Where the Red Fern Grows. Thanks for watching LWIAR. The best of recent r/AskReddit submissions and comments. If you like this video, check out LWIAR too. And don't forget to like and subscribe.